Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this special afternoon edition of Unique Peace. Today, I am live in the studio here at Tied In. I would like to thank our friends here at the studio for having us shoot. And today, I'm joined by Yvonne Cook, a retired nurse. She was a nurse for 47 years. She's a Reiki Master teacher for 20, and we're going to learn more about her and what brings her peace. Welcome, Yvonne.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
Good.
Good.
Sun came out and couldn't.
Yes.
That gives me peace right there.
So you are a fellow Reiki Master teacher.
Yes.
And you were in the nursing field for 47 years.
Yes.
So can you walk us through how that mix how you got to that mix and how it's helped you?
I actually knew I was going to be a nurse when I was 14 because I didn't have any other thoughts of what I could be. I was, my neighbor across the street when I was 8 told me I couldn't be the ballerina I wanted to be because my feet were too large. So I had to go into something else. But I was a candy striker since 14 and I loved it. I knew that's where I had to be. And as soon as I graduated high school, I went into nursing school. It was a 3-year RN nursing school, which now have phased out. They phased out like 2 years after I graduated. Now they're 4 years or more. But I worked in all the fields. I started out in med surg, which I loved, and then moved to as I moved physically out of state, out of the area to other hospitals, I worked in different areas. So in neurology, I worked in ICU in the emergency room, but my most comfortable, and I don't like to say favorite, but satisfying area to work in was oncology, because I work very well with people that are dying. It gives me peace to know that I can give someone else peace during that very frightful time. So I worked in there many years, and then added on top of that, home care visiting nurse, which I was doing while I was also still working in the hospital. So I was multitasking that with between 3 children. So I know you just think you can do everything, but
yeah, we do. We can't,
yeah,
but we try.
Yeah. So it's very satisfying to work for me with patients. It can be aggravating, it can be hard, but yeah, it was my calling. And I feel that in my past lives, I've been some type of healer and in some capacity, and the nursing definitely fit that role in this time.
Yes. And how did you add Reiki into nursing? How did you find it? And how did you incorporate it during those?
A friend of mine asked me when my children were small if I would like to learn. She was taking a class in Reiki. Would I come with her? And I wanted to. I was interested, but I said, my husband and 3 children come first. Mothers put everything on the back burner for themselves. And I said sometime in the future, but at this time right now, it can't. And then a few years down the road, I had my own crisis. And it suddenly was like someone turned a switch on. And I asked my friend who was doing Reiki, who was your teacher? Where did you go? And by that next weekend, I was already attuned to Reiki 1. From there, it was like a train rushing. I whatever modality I heard of that interested me, I did. So it was IET, Rising Star, Theta Healing, but I always came back to Reiki. That was like the home base. And over the years, I learned to incorporate some of the other healing things that I learned in with the Reiki. So whatever kind of comes through me, what intuitively, I will add that to my healing when I'm working on that person. So that's about it. and now it's like it's been for years and years on constant mode. So when I wake up in the morning, it's already kind of sending out. I have a long distance healing crystal grid that I charge every morning that charges the Reiki with the names under the grid, and any of the requests that I have go out daily for everybody. I don't know.
Now, I, like you, also incorporate different types of clients. So I know that you work on humans, but you also work on animals.
Correct. And plants.
In plants.
And I've helped a lot of plants.
Awesome.
But yeah,
I think my plants would need you because I unfortunately, if you're outside, you have a fighting chance.
Yeah, yeah, animals, I love to, they're so receptive. They're so receptive. And I've worked on many dogs. And I had one dog that was a rescue greyhound that had cancer and had the front leg removed. I worked on her for almost 2 years, and the vet couldn't believe how well she was doing for her age. She passed after 11 years old, I think.
Oh, that's a long time.
It's a long time for
a greyhound.
Yeah, yeah. And her little tail wagged, and she'd lay down on the floor like, I'm ready for you, you know, and then she would just take it. At times, I like to do hands-on. At times, it would get a little too strong for her, and she'd whimper a little bit, and then I would have to back off and do it from a distance. I knew, so it didn't happen too often, but I did pick up on that. So I'm more aware of it when I work with animals, if they don't. But otherwise, they'll come and sit right next to you, and they just want to be with you, you know. They just want to feel it. They just want to, and they're here for us. They give us so much comfort and unconditional love. That's what they're here for us.
Yeah,
so
they're the angels without wings.
What's that?
They're the angels without wings.
Absolutely, absolutely. And cats too. I mean, cats
Excuse me.
just sit on your lap, or they purr. It's all calming. It's all not just for them, but it's calming for us. And it just there's a healing process in it for everybody. So it's all good.
Absolutely. Back home, I used to have 2 that I claimed, but we had 4 cats, and they loved me. And I would be like going to bed. My cat would sleep on my pillow on my head. It was great. And then one of my other ones would sleep in the crevice by my tummy.
Yeah.
And then I'd have one at my back and one at my feet.
You were covered.
I was covered. And when they would purr, and you would just like, it was just so healing.
It's so soothing, you know.
And I felt very protected.
Yeah. Yes.
Very protective.
Yeah.
But it was funny. These 2 would switch. Yes. Like if I rolled over, these 2 would switch because they had their places.
Yes. They staked them out.
They staked them out. So I love the healing power of the animals. So.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'll send it out to whatever's going on in the world also.
Yes, we've a lot going on.
The tsunamis and the volcanoes and the different governments in the different countries. I guess sometimes I feel so busy that is it helping? Is it not helping? But it has to. For me, prayer helps, and sending out energy helps. So I know it's going to get to somebody or something, and work.
And work. Yeah.
You know, and if everybody could do it,
that would be beautiful, right?
Yeah. How changed would things be? You know, right now people are so conflicted, and it's hard. It can be depressing at times to see what's going on, and I have to step back a little bit sometimes and just try to recharge and not think about it, because I feel like sometimes I'm taking everything in, and it can be overwhelming.
So on that note, how do you define peace?
How do I define peace? Peace for me is being in nature. It's being in it or working in it. So my gardens are everything to me. I don't have any more room in my gardens to plant anything, but I managed to find room to plant anyway. Sometimes it looks like a total overgrown mess or organized mess. I don't know. But I ground in Mother Earth. I do. If it's not working physically in it, I can just sit in my chair and look at it. And as I'm looking at it, and the beauty of the colors, gosh, the colors can be so vibrant, and they can raise your vibration up. So I always have to have flowers in the house, always. So in the winter, when I have nothing growing outside, I buy myself flowers every 2 weeks. I always have bouquets in the house. And I will give bouquets in the summers or whatever. If I have friends come over, I'll pick flowers and have them bring it home. It lifts you up. I need to light my candles. I need to light my incense. That brings me inner peace. That helps ground me and keep me okay. So.
Well, that is the next question, is how do you find peace?
By doing all those things.
Exactly.
Yeah. I do it. And sometimes I know that I have to stop and do it. or I have to get away from the noise.
Okay,
The
so
noise.
when do you know, like, what would be a good indicator that, okay, you're in too much noise and you're too overwhelmed?
I
How
start to
would you-
feel a little, I don't know if it's anxiety. I just don't feel right. I
Gotcha.
just feel off.
You feel off.
So it's like time.
And you go and you do that.
Yeah.
Marie Finnegan says your garden is a gorgeous mess, Yvonne.
Thank you, Marie. Come visit and see it again. I always invite people to come look at the garden because I know it'll help ground them. You
Yes.
know, I'm into my home, not the one I'm in now, the one I was in before, but when I was by myself. Because I used to have Reiki there on Thursday nights. That was open to the public. Whoever came. I didn't know who was coming, how many, if anybody, would walk through the door. And I had one person say, whoa, like just felt the energy in the house. So different from what they walked in from outside.
Yes.
It was just, I mean, I had tourmaline stones over the front of the door, which would knock the stuff off your chakra, your crown chakra. So it stayed outside and didn't come in. But the incense going, and I had my music going, very Reiki music or spa music, and all of that combined would just make them feel better already, even without me doing anything yet. Just being in that environment. I had one of my friends who was a nurse that always had some chaos at her house, and I said, well, come over to my backyard and write your nursing notes on my porch. I don't care that you're back there writing your notes. And she did one time, and it gave her like a decompression. She could just function better, and she couldn't do that at her house. Grandbabies running around and her always something with the animals, with her husband, whatever. And so I invited her and said, come, you write your notes here. I don't have a problem with it. I'm doing my own stuff. And that helped.
And it does help. And you also brought up a good point with the crystals. I find crystals personally I connect more with them and knowing what they do and how they help. So do you like mix flowers and plants?
My
with
house
crystals?
is loaded with crystals, as Marie Finnegan can tell you, knowing Pascal when she had her store in Huntington.
I love
I have
Pascal.
some very large pieces in that I just help bring raise the vibration up. And then all small crystals everywhere you turn around, and there's something always looking at you. And when I work on someone, I have, my altar that I have intuitively put together in the Reiki room. And whoever wants me to use them or pick them up, I do. I don't always say, oh, this is what you do, and this is what you do. Whatever catches my eye and says, me.
Very much the same way.
Yeah.
Very much the same way, because they know what needs to be done.
To be used, right.
And I've also had clients who I'll have random stones out and they'll pick one up, and that's like, okay, that's the one you need. Like, oh, you need rose. Okay.
Right.
I know what I'm working with.
Right.
Or they'll pick up the astrophyllite. I'm like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily know what they're
Correct.
looking at. They'll ask
It's
and inquire.
the feeling, intuitive feeling of what they
It's
see.
what's vibrating,
Right.
what matches. It's a beautiful thing. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing. And that goes to the next question of, how do you bring peace to others, just in general, aside from like Reiki clients, because that's very specific, but just in general.
In general, I think I'm a listener. I'll listen to you, or I'll be there to help you. I'll be the first one. Well, not as so much now, because now I am attached to a family. When I was by myself, it was easier to get away. But if someone needed help, 9/11, I went down 9/11 on that day. A few hours later, I was able to get down to 9/11 to see if I could volunteer and help and do something. When Katrina hit, it took me 2 weeks, but I got down because I just kept calling and no one would call me back. And I finally got the, what's the organization when you have natural disaster?
Red Cross?
Red Cross. I got the Red Cross in Louisiana because I wasn't getting a response from the Red Cross up in here in New York. So I went down there and volunteered, and you can only stay 2 weeks to volunteer. Because it was just, they felt it was too much for anyone to handle more than 2 weeks. So 2 weeks down there. whatever I feel pulled to, I was pulled to those two places. I was pulled to go and learn with Elizabeth Jenkins, and we went to Peru for 2 weeks and learned with the shamans. So it's like they guide me where they want me to go, and I try to honor that. And if I can't go, then I'll work with it right in my garden or in my bedroom, and just work with it intuitively that way.
Yes.
So
Now, it's on a grander scale. So how do you bring that more to a local myopic scale?
local where I live.
Yeah.
I think the biggest for me, always showing kindness to people and compassion and being there to help them. If everybody could do that and do their part, I think we would see a whole different world. But everyone's stuck in their own place with their own problems or angers or judgments, and that can't get through. If I can send it out every morning, if I can send it out to that person, if I see them, then hopefully it will affect them a little bit. You know, I remember years ago going into, before on the way to work, going into 7-Eleven to pick up a coffee, and out of the corner of my eye saw a man across the street, disheveled, and was working his way slowly in. And I said, let me just hold back a minute. And he came in and was like counting change, and I just gave him a $5 bill. I said, get some coffee and a roll or something to eat. Nobody made me do that. I don't do that often. Only I was pulled to do that. If it was a test from the universe, I don't know. But I felt I needed to show him some kindness and compassion then. And anybody can do that.
Anybody can. We
But
all should.
we all still have a lot to do and a lot to work on and to go.
Right.
So
And that little bit of kindness goes a long way.
I hope
Both
it does. You know, I hope it helped that person at the time, and that maybe in the future, as time went on, things would get better for him. I would always ask the angels to look out for this person, whoever I was doing something for. Just be there and see if you can help and just guide them. Send the right people to them, help them with the situation. I'm giving him or her to the universe now. If you can please work on this for me, I would be grateful. I would be very grateful, because I can only do so much as a little person down here. Whatever I can do, I will. That's how I can do it locally or
globally,
worldwide.
yeah.
That's what I'll do.
Now, do you have like a favorite spot that you find is peaceful? Your gardens you had mentioned, but any, like if you were to leave home, what's your favorite peaceful spot?
I don't really have a particular spot. I'm happy anywhere that there's nature. Anywhere that has flowers is a go. And anywhere that there's water is a go.
So go.
I love water, and I'll work and send healing to the sea beings, all creatures, all the things that live there, and send them love and light and healing and that you're in here. You know, that you're not in your free land and you're free and roaming and with a family, and I send you healing and love and hope you'll be okay. Even if you were born there, it's not
It's
still not the same.
It's not the same.
You know, I remember seeing online a picture of a bear in Russia somewhere in this cement cavern, people looking over the fence at him, and he was sitting there so depressed. I mean, he was just sitting there, head hanging down, like, what life is that? This bear doesn't deserve to have that. And my heart went out to him, but it can only do so much. So I send what light you can, but you don't know if it'll have any effect. I don't know.
It always has an effect. You know it does.
Yeah, I know, but not enough. Not enough. That's what hurts sometimes.
So for your clients and bringing your clients peace, what are some of the aspects that you incorporate. We've talked about crystals, we've talked about IET, we've talked about that. Now, I'm assuming you kind of do what I do when you speak the vibration of the client and they come into you. What's your ultimate goal when they come to you as far as when they leave you?
The ultimate goal is to them to be able to release something. I know I'm not the healer. I just facilitate and kickstart it. You're the healer. Okay,
Right.
yourself, who's coming to me. So I will move wherever I'm guided to. I used to just be very set, very rigid, because, as a nurse, you go by the book. You have your blinders on and you start here and you work your way down, you flip them over, you go all the way down. And that's what I did for a few years. And then I said, well, Yvonne, you can loosen up a little bit here, like try to intuitively what comes to you. So I'll do whatever I'm doing in that hour or half hour. And I always get a response at the end. We always discuss it when we're finished.
Okay.
Or I'll have them crying on the table. I have the tissue box right here. I say, if you feel something come up, do not hold it in.
No.
Just start bawling on the table. And I'll give the tissues, because something's shifted, something's been released. And like I explain, it's like an onion. We're peeling it, but there's more underneath. So keep drinking that water for a few days. And if you feel like crying in Starbucks or in the library or in school, let it out. Because if you don't, you're starting from the bottom again, and you have to start all over because you repressed that emotion. That healing did not take place. Yep. Cry. I have a lot of criers that have come to me. So I just help move it. And, we just discuss it afterwards and see what they felt or heard, or if anything. And I tell them, if you see nothing, feel nothing, whatever, it doesn't mean it's not working.
Yes,
okay?
That is very true.
Because I was always that way from the very beginning. I can't see anything. I can't hear anything. I can't, I was one of those people. And just let it be. It's not meant for you to have to feel anything. Some people are more sensitive. Mm-hmm. Some people are much faster absorbers. I can probably count on one or two hands people that I've sent long distance to that were so quick in responding.
Yes.
That it shocked me.
Yep.
And I said, well, I'm putting her on the fast healer list, because I've never seen anybody respond so quick out of pain or nasal drainage or whatever it was. And others will take longer. And then there have been people who I felt there was no response from. They didn't really. And I said, well, that's okay. It's not, don't blame yourself for it, because there could be blockages they're holding back, or they're trying to protect themselves and don't even realize it. So it is what it is. When I'm there, I'm working, and whatever happens.
Yep.
And they say, should I come back next week or next month? I said, I'm not telling you when to come back.
I know.
Intuitively, when you think you want to see me again, give me a call.
I always tell people, it's like I can say it's up to you.
Yeah.
I'm
not telling you need to come in 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Otherwise, it's not going to continue to work. You have work to do on yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay. You have to go within now and start rumbling around.
Everything.
Exactly.
And
so I'm not in the picture. When you think, I think I could go through that again and see what happens, then give me a call. I'm here. I don't go anywhere. I'm either in the garden if I don't answer right away, or whatever.
I always tell my clients, people, it's like, if you don't feel anything right away, that is fine. At least you were able to relax.
Right.
That's the biggest thing for me, is making sure they leave in a better state than when they came in.
I mean, they start snoring on the table.
I've had that.
I'm really happy with that. Like, okay, take them up there and start working on them while I'm working on this part down here. You work on it. They don't have to know everything that's happening or stay wide awake for it.
No, absolutely. And it's like, I also tell them, this is your journey.
Right.
It's very important,
and
that they know it's them.
Everyone's journey is totally different.
Yes.
It all depends on what your journey is to start with, and what you're here to do, and what you're here to learn, what you're here to release.
and I tell people, and this was a lot of what my own Reiki master teacher taught us is, okay, they come in with back pain and you're working on their knees. Don't worry about it, because those knees might be the reason for the back
related
pain.
to the back. Exactly.
So I always kind of give them that. It's like, I know you came in because your back hurts, but well, I might not be at your back.
Right. Well, I would tell them too, you came in for that back pain and you have no relief. There's something else that's a little bit more, needs a little bit more work than that back pain. And that could be any kind of tumor, maybe cancer, maybe diabetes that's just starting or has a possibility of starting, that needs to be worked on first, as opposed to the back pain. That'll eventually will
ease up
and come up to where you want it to be. But it doesn't mean that that person who's working on you is not good because I still have the back pain or I still have the headaches or whatever. Yeah, there's other stuff going on that I don't even know about that's going on inside of you that you need to eventually, you may eventually have to wind up in the hospital with if you don't.
It could be physical, it could be metaphysical.
Emotional, mental, spiritual, physical. It's all being worked on at one time.
Yes. So it takes a lot. Sometimes I personally feel energized when I do Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
I feel more drained doing readings alone. So I love when people come to me just for Reiki.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the biggest thing I can do to help.
Yeah.
It kicks something into gear for both parties.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
Now, did you ever do Reiki on patients?
Yes. But I wouldn't tell the hospital.
No.
I get drawn to certain patients that in my mind are, I don't want to say the word special. There's some kind of link. And I have said to them, this is what I do, the home care piece. Outside, this is what I do. Would it be okay if I worked for you a few minutes while you're laying in bed to do some energy healing on you? Everyone always says yes. And I have done that. I had actually a nurse call me 2 separate times from the burn unit for 2 children up there.
Okay.
If I would work on them. And I did. And
that's intense when you have little ones going through a lot too.
Yeah.
Because I also work on children. Yeah. The train of thought left without me. Excuse me. Oh, so now I see that during like Nurses Week, they'll bring in practitioners like us.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gone in and
they asked me
back?
years ago. One of the nurses was setting up to do something special for the nurses. And then she asked me, would you work for an hour downstairs? Now, mind you, I have my job, which is not, being paid by the hospital. So that I'm with an outside company, but I took an hour, took my lunch hour or whatever it was. And I had my own table and I had people come and just sit on the chair and I would work on them 5 minutes or 10 minutes for some Reiki. And, they go around and do something else. But yeah, I did do that. So.
I think that's great. And I also see that they're bringing it in as part of a holistic healing, like Northwell, the women's oncology unit does have Reiki practitioners. So it should.
It should. Every place should have it. They should have nurses or practitioners that do it in the operating room. They should have people in the emergency room.
Oh, yes.
And any other places, any other floor that needs it, or a doctor writes an order, whatever they need to do it. They do need, it's so important. It makes such a difference. Oncology, absolutely. Reiki helps with the chemo results. The chemo, radiation, the mental, the fear. I mean, it's all included, all inclusive in one. They definitely, every single hospital, I don't know why it's taken so long. I mean, there are hospitals that use it, but I would love to see much more.
Me personally as well. I just found as a Reiki practitioner that becoming more encompassing has made, it's like, okay, great. And it's satisfactory on 2 levels. It's like, okay, you're taking me and what I do seriously, and that's not the first, but it's like, okay, now you let me help people.
Yeah.
I get to come in and help people,
Right.
and you're taking what I
Right.
do into
Right.
consideration. It's like, if nothing else,
That's big.
I've calmed the people down.
That's right.
And helped them, like you
Right.
said, bring them that
Right.
mental peace.
And even if they did things like salt lamps, some diffusers with lavender, in the air to help calm people down, in the waiting rooms, in the oncology units, in the surgical floors, surgical waiting rooms, it would help change the vibration and change the frequency on everybody on so many levels. It really would, but I guess it's very hard to get things like that set up. There's a lot of backlash from higher ups, and
unfortunately, it's a pharmaceutical world versus a naturopath world.
yes.
So, and there's something to be said for the pharmaceuticals, but there should be other considerations.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see us
even with the
gravitate.
holistic, how many people have cured their cancer, have cured their diabetes, have all the different things that can be done.
I've seen it. You've seen it.
I've
So it's
seen it.
beautiful.
Yep.
Absolutely. So what I like to ask is, what's in your toolbox? So I'll give you a scenario, and you can tell me how in 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, you'll bring somebody into a peaceful state. So whether your grandchildren. So,
I'm sorry.
say you have a meltdown, a 2-year-old meltdown times 2. So, you got that meltdown times squared. So what's in your toolbox? What's your go-to to help you calm down the meltdown?
Talk in a soft voice, because you're screaming and yelling at them to stop is just adding to the chaotic vibration around you. So bring them close, and look them in the eye if you can, if they'll let you, and start talking soft, so they have to start listening a little bit. And hugs are a big thing, especially with children. The brain hasn't developed yet. It's still developing. It's even developing in my 4-year-old grandchild. So be a pillar, be sturdy, be strong, be there, be in the now, be there for them, and do what you can. And as soon as you see the calming, it'll switch around. And that's even for an adult, who's in grief or in anger from a family member because they did this and they did that. And yet try to make them see what possibly could be causing it from their end, or how you can step back and just observe instead of react can be a big thing.
No, it is absolutely a big thing.
Yeah. I've learned to step back a few times when I had to, even with my mom, and I took care of her when she had Alzheimer's, and she lived with me. And there's time to say, Yvonne, like, step back from this, stop micromanaging, and don't feed into the frenzy. Don't feed into her world, because she's not going to see your world. She's not going to understand what you're saying to her. She sees it the way she sees it, and that's the way it's going to be. So redirect it if you can.
And that's powerful, because I've lost 2 grandparents to Alzheimer's personally. And my sister does she does what's called they're helpers. So they're not nurses. They're just going in and helping, assisting like
activities of daily living. Exactly.
So you're familiar.
Right.
But she had some training, and it was very key training. And I loved it. Is you have to, like, we know we have to meet people where they're at. You have to meet them when they're at. If they're back in 1966, you're in 1966, even if you did not exist in that point.
Right.
Because I mean, there were many
my mother
times
would wake up in the morning and, think I was her mother. And I would try to redirect her and say, I'm not your mother. Your mother died over 80 years ago.
And it
doesn't matter. It doesn't make any sense to her. So the frustration kicks in, and then we're arguing back and forth before we even got out of the bed to have breakfast. It's like I had to keep reminding myself. And I would, and she would trigger me now and then. And I didn't know how to, I would just go crazy. And then, as one of my friends pointed out, you have to realize you're grieving her oncoming death. That could be 20 years down the road, but you're already grieving what you're going to lose. And that's why you're reacting. So it's all a learning process.
Yeah. And I feel like I was a little bit more prepared than my aunt. And here's why. Because when I was little, I was about 8 years old. Apparently I looked just like my mom. And yes, there's pictures to prove it looked just like my mom. And we went to go see my great grandmother. If she would call, my grandmother looked at me, she says, if she calls you Suzanne, you just say yes.
Just say yes.
And sure enough, she did. And it was like, I didn't understand what was happening. And then my grandfather, it also had Alzheimer's. And it's like, okay, he didn't know half of what was going on. And, everyone would ask him, how you doing? How you doing? And so it was like, okay, we all had our lessons in that moment.
Yes.
And my aunt was like, she would have your moments where she wanted you right here and right now.
Yeah.
He wasn't right here and right now.
And he's not going to be able to get there.
No, he was 10, 20, 30 years or wherever he was.
Right.
And so those are
and there's
important
times
lessons.
I could see my mother leave. She'd be sitting at the kitchen table and all of a sudden she got this look in her eyes. I knew she went up there. She was there for a little while before she came back down. And you have to realize that that's the way things are going to be here, just accept it and just love her. And I did the best I could. And I tried to spoil her as much as I could and give her as much joy. And I tried, there weren't that many triggering moments, but when they were very frustrating. And I had to reevaluate, like, why did that happen? Why did I react that way? And try to do better the next time, and, my mom turned diabetic with me. And the doctor said it's from all the different meds she was on. But she was on insulin and stuff. And, so I bought all the books on diabetic cooking and all the stuff. And we're doing this right, Mom. And I did it for a while. But she loves her sweets. And she loves her Dutch candy and her Dutch cookies.
And being from
And you know what? I gave them to her. I said, she's only has so much time left on this planet.
So you gave her some peace.
I gave her something she wanted and loved. And I said, and the last 3 years I had to put her in the nursing home because I couldn't take all the falls anymore. And I knew she was safer there. As much as I promised myself I would never do that, I knew I couldn't handle her by myself at home.
Right.
Even though I had an aide during the day so I could go to work. Fell with the aide, fell when my son was there. She left the house.
That's the scariest part.
She left the house locked. It was locked. And must have been somewhere between 2 and 4 in the morning. And I found her because I always get up in the middle of the night to see if her lights were off. Because sometimes she would fall asleep on the potty by the next to her bed. I wouldn't let her walk to the bathroom down the hall. And her light was on. The door was open. And she was laying on the stoop, on the walkway by a few feet from my door. In her nightgown. Thank God, slippers on. But
no, there comes a point.
You don't know.
There comes a point, and that's when you know it's time to put them in a home because you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
But you did give her some peace, so that was awesome.
Yeah, and I took her home every weekend for the day. Every Saturday she came. Saturday or Sunday she came home for the day. Picked her up in the morning. She took rides out east, and she had her strawberry milkshake that she loved from All American in Massapequa, and then had her nap. My dog and her napped at the same time. The two of them were in the den. They were both sleeping. And then a nice home-cooked meal, which she loved because, the food anywhere else you go to is not up to your standards. And then I would drive her back and get her ready for bed there. So, I don't regret anything except maybe being a little bit looser in her realities and not having to fight her. The aide doesn't like me and she stole my rings and she hit me and I have bruises and blah, 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 blah. And I would say, no, she did not. And, but that's not her reality. So I should just say, okay, I'll talk to the head nurse about it and see if we can fix it. But I had to bring her back to my reality. No, it didn't happen. And
Right.
that was wrong. That was
So-
wrong.
But at all those things, you brought her some peace and joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you found a way to bring yourself peace and joy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Anytime I have peace, if it's in the garden or helping somebody, I feel the joy. I do. And if I can give the joy to somebody else, what else is there?
Yeah. And it is important to take that step back and say, what am I contributing? And
Yeah.
how can I
Yeah.
ease?
Yeah. Yeah. I want everyone to have peace. I want everyone to have joy. It's such a wonderful feeling. And it's so hard to attain sometimes. It really is. But we're all a work in progress.
Yes, we are. And on that note,
Grace girl out there saying, great show, ladies.
thank you,
Aw,
Grace.
Thank you.
And I thank Yvonne for being with us today and sharing what brings her. And I am also looking very forward to having Tori Quisling on next week, also at noon. She'll be joining us from Arizona, and she's going to talk to us about what brings her peace. And I look forward to seeing all of you then. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.